Disassembling the front end is very similar to the rear. So after we remove those screws, slit this out, now we can go ahead and remove this. We have that here. These pins, these are the ones that lock into the disc. So the shaft from the transmission locks into the shaft, and then the shaft locks onto the disc brake. That's how the brake works. But here we go. So in order to remove the shocks, I'm just going to do half of it. You would just remove this screw here, and then you can remove this, and this whole section is going to come out. So you will have this here. And the shocks are the same as the GTR shocks. So if you have seen my video on the GTR shocks, for example, for a Slash, it's the same process. So I will not disassemble the shocks here on camera. All right, and then these will just, let's see, there's usually a little groove. Yeah, they will slide off this way. So this way. And that is it. And then that was a 2mm, this is a 2.5. So once I remove this whole section will come off. And these screws generally have Loctite from the factory. That's not working out now, is it? It's bringing the whole shaft with it for some reason. That's how tight this screw is. Oh well. It's the first time that happens. And I will show you what I mean in a bit. Alright, so it brought this out, so you're going to need some, just a wrench to go in there. You can use some pliers too, but just use a wrench. And then this screw would come out. This is a short screw. It's probably just a 10 millimeters in length. This would come out, and then once that comes out, you can remove this here, and then these will pop apart. And then if you watched my teardown on the rear, you just push one bearing, push the other bearing, and that is it. So we have this section right over here. Now what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to take this front plate off, and this one actually has a screw. The rear did not. So I'll remove this screw here. Once I remove this, then that front plate will come out, and this plate reinforces the pins for the suspension. And I've already removed these lower ones, but it also holds the bulkhead together. So that's the purpose behind those. So now that that is removed, I now have better access to this. Something that you want to keep in mind are these two little spacers here. So these spacers, you can add them to the front, you can add them to the rear. That'll shift your suspension. Out of the factory, it's 2 and 2. That's what you have. So for these, they will come out with the pin, or you can actually just grab them and pull them out. If they don't want to though. I think it's my pliers. Yeah, it's my pliers. I'll leave them. If you have just regular pliers, you can pull them out, but there's no need. All right, good. So here, I'm going to go ahead and remove this screw and that screw. And then once I remove that, I can shift this and remove this other screw. So there's those two screws there, and then these two over here. And I will keep these separate because I believe they are a different size. Cannot remember, but we'll figure it out right now. All right, so that one will go there. And this one here. Let's see, I believe this one's longer, but I could be wrong. They look the same. It's the same. All right, And all I'm doing is I'm separating this entire steering unit from the bulkhead. That's all I'm doing with those 4 screws. And that one goes there. And here we go. Right in there. All right, so this is now separated. So at this point, to complete the separation, I'm going to remove these 2 here on the plate. Now, if you wanted to work here on the steering, you do have to remove the front plate first. Before removing this, it makes it a lot easier. I mean, I guess you don't really have to. You can slide this back. But sometimes it's easier to remove an extra component. So what I mean by slide it back is once you remove those 2 screws, you can try sliding this back, but it'd be too much. You would have to remove that screw in order for that to work. But yeah, you would. Let me try doing it. Alright, so when you remove the center screw, just be careful because that's the only thing that's holding your servo saver and everything here. Alright, so there we go. And that's it. Alright. So at this point, you can go ahead and push this back. Alright, so these will come off. There we go. And in order to remove this, you would remove these and this would now come apart completely and you would be able to replace this arm. So if you had broken this arm, you would have to have access to this, remove these 2, this comes off, and then you can replace this. Now the spring is in there, so there's a spring in there, so just be careful with that spring. That's for your servo saver. And to replace these links, you would remove these 2 here, and then just remove one of these in here. Now at this point, I can remove these short pins. These hold the arms. So now my arms are free. And now that my arms are free on the bottom, I can go ahead and deal with the top ones. So you can see how this already wants to come out, and there. Just don't forget those little clips. See these 2 clips? We're going to need those later. Do not lose them. But that is it. So now I can remove the bulkhead. If you had to replace the bulkhead, there is one side. And if you needed to access the differential, so you would do the same thing to the other side. So I'm just not going to do it. There we go. Now I have access to my differential. So that is it when it comes to disassembling the front end. Now, a quick little note, if you have not seen my video on the teardown for the rear, these arms, the way you remove the arms are, there's a little plastic ring here that clips on here to the side. So you just undo the clips right in here. So there's 1 and 2. So you remove those 2 little ears. This comes off. And then once this clip comes off, that boot will come off. Now you're probably not going to do this at this time, but let me show you something else that you will need, which I'm not going to do in this video, but I did do in the other video for the rear. So here I'm just going to tell you the steps. It's easier. Right, so the boot is on. These little rubbers, so just go ahead and pull them out. So you can just grab your pliers and just pull out that rubber, and now you have access to this. So 2.5 millimeter driver can go in here, and then you would just loosen. So just go left, and then this arm will come off. Same thing for the other side. Now that pin that has a little ball, you just grab an Allen wrench that fits in here, and this plastic thing, this portion here, this is just a nut that'll come out, and then you can push that pin out with that little ball pin. and then you can install a new one in or grease it, clean it, whatever. Drive this one back in. Just when you're driving it back in, make sure the Allen wrench, everything is straight, because if you cross thread it, it's going to be a pain to set it correctly. And then you would just tighten everything to the arm, slide the boot, clip everything together, and you're set. In order to remove these little shafts here, you have this hex. The hex will come off, and if it does not, this one's a little tougher than the rears, just use a flathead screwdriver, something to pry this out. Remove the pin, so this pin just slides out, and then this you can just push through. The bearings are very simple. There's a gap between them, so just kind of push that bearing out, and then after you push that bearing out, see, you'll be able to see that inner ring on the inner bearing. Push that one out as well. So that is really all that you would do. Now for the differential, so I'm just going to walk you through the steps. You're going to need a driver for this one. I believe it's a 2mm. Yes, 2mm driver here, and then when here, these will come out, and then this one as well, right over here, that will come out. Once you do that, you have these 4 screws right in here. Remove these, this back cover will come out. I'll be honest, you do not need to remove these in order to reveal the differential. You can just remove these 4 screws, cover comes off, and the differential will come out with these. But if you have to replace any of the gears, you may have to replace one or the other. Once that happens, the differential will be out. I guess I might as well just show it. I mean, I'm not worried about this needing grease or anything, I'm just doing this to show. And one more screw. And that's it. So the differential can actually come out with that attached. But if you have to remove that one, you're gonna have to remove this. If you need to replace something in here, you're gonna have to remove those. In order to access the internals of the differential, it's those 4 screws right in there. So you have 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and that is it. So now, go ahead, place the 4 screws back in and retighten everything. I don't want that dirt to go inside. So I'll place these. And this one here. And now this one over here. Now, if you have everything disassembled like this, you can go ahead and just start wiping everything down, or to be honest, an air compressor will take care of it. So I'm gonna wipe this down and then I'll come back to reassemble it.